stories out there.
My intentions are to do my job and be a good soldier and contribute to the mission. That has been distorted since I've been in the military. That turned into defending myself.
Specialist Zachary Klawonn is an American soldier, an American Muslim of Moroccan descent, and for the past 2 years, he's been stationed at one of the largest military installations in the U.S., Fort Hood, Texas. Zachary is well respected among his peers and his supervisors, but the reason why we drove down to Fort Hood from D.C. was to talk with Specialist Klawonn and his commander about Zachary's complaints. According to Specialist Klawonn, he's been harassed at the base by some soldiers and by some in the chain of command. And the reason for this, according to Zachary, is simply because he happens to be a Muslim.
So let me get this straight. In the military, what you're saying is that in the military right now, to pick on an American Muslim soldier and make fun of him is a cool thing to do. Not just an American Muslim soldier, but the faith as a whole. The Muslim faith as a whole. Sure. It's in jokes every day. There's derogatory terms. It's everywhere. Most of the guys I met, I'm the only Muslim they've ever met in their life, let alone in the army. I've heard from a lot of people, a lot of guys that I served with, like, you know, who I don't speak to anymore, who I don't have a relationship with, who thought, said, "Why are you even in the army?" What do you mean by that? Exactly what they said. Why are you in the army? And that's what your reaction was. The same reaction I had. What do you mean? We're on the same team, and I joined the army for the same reason I hope you join the army, to protect freedom, to protect this way of life. I cherish this way of life here that we have here. It's an amazing sense of freedom. In their eyes, I was a Muslim, and there was no differential in their thought process, in their reality, that there was no differential between terrorist and Muslim. In their eyes, it was the same thing. And maybe more than half of those that I educated very quickly upon debate or just upon normal conversation, I dispelled some rumors. I answered some of their questions, and immediately a lot of these guys picked up and they were very accepting, just treating me like one of the guys. But then there was that group that didn't. But initially, I'd say as a whole, that group had that perception that the word Muslim and the word terrorist were the same. They were connected directly.
But Zachary's supervisor and commander, Captain Christopher Arata, an Iraq War veteran, says that nothing of the sort is happening in his unit. He can't speak for the entire U.S. Army or for Fort Hood.
I can't talk about what the rest of Fort Hood, and all that. I can just talk about my specific unit and stuff that I've tried to do, to implement to allow for that comfortable atmosphere, allow people to serve comfortably, and work so far for me.
Specialist Zachary Klawonn's close friend, Private First Class Chad Jakimowicz, has been there with him in many of these alleged instances. As time progressed, the harassment turned into something more aggressive.
One time, me and him were going to do our laundry, and we had walked in there, and all of a sudden we see some kind of papers on the ground, like ripped up, like somebody just made a mess for no reason. We walk in there, and it was his Quran, his book, almost like his Bible, was just ripped up, was like torn to shreds, and that set me off. Just because the man's Muslim, just because his Bible doesn't look like your Bible, it doesn't mean that you have to discriminate him. You don't even know the guy.
Klawonn argues that spending time with some folks doesn't really mean that it will impact a whole lot of people. To find the moral compass, he says, there needs to be a collective effort by the United States Army to help address the misconceptions that the soldiers or their commanders might have about Muslims, because not doing so is creating an environment of fear.
Do you think it's because of lack of information? I mean, people will spend time with you and then they get to know, this guy seemed like a pretty normal guy to me, doesn't look like a terrorist. Did that help in changing perceptions?
Sure, with that small, immediate group that I got to impact directly. When I came in the Army, 2008, I came in the military, and I went through the, I guess you could say, the lack of education on that subject, or it was just the ignorance, or, you know, in reality, racism that I went through. I wasn't prepared for that coming in the military. Because the society I came from in Tampa, I never one day went through that. Post 9/11, I didn't go through that. And it was mind-blowing coming to the military and just having that environment, like, wow.
And then there was another thing. In the Army, it's known as cultural training, to help young recruits and soldiers understand the enemy or the region in order for them to handle situations once they are deployed.
Their culture training, you know, they picked him to be the head, you know, the head terrorist, just because of what his ethnicity was, and that he could speak the Arabic language. You know, they picked him out. It wasn't like he, like, you know, I volunteer, you know, I'll do it, you know, because, like, look at me, you know, I'll do it. You know, they picked him out of all the people that was there. You know, they're picking people, and he happened to be one of the first people that was picked to do that. And I'm shooting my battle buddy.
Captain Chris Arata says that he doesn't think any of this was intentional or on purpose. Every soldier's skill set is useful for the military.
I would bet any money in the world that the individuals who, you know, asked Klawonn that, I don't think they were intentionally trying to, you know, slight Klawonn or hurt his feelings or anything like that. I think they were really trying to get as realistic a training event as they could. You know, I doubt they realized what they were doing to Klawonn. Now, when Klawonn brought it up, that's a different story.
It did affect him psychologically.
Absolutely, and we know that now. And so, you know, really what that comes down to is, hey, lesson learned.
Having a Latino heritage, specialist Arnold Mendez asked what would happen to him if America were to go to war with Mexico.
That just tells me, I mean, you know, it's crazy hypothetical, but if we were to go to war with Mexico, you know, that means that all the Hispanics are going to be targeted or singled out, or we're going to be the bad guys. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. Were they picking him for the sake of, you know, picking him because he was Muslim, or for the training? I mean, it's hard to say, but at the same time, it's just like there's so many people you could have picked. Why pick him? Does he have a deeper insight into being a terrorist than anybody else? I mean, he needs that training just like everybody else needed training.
I asked Mendez and Chad if they had heard of these cultural training slides that the military uses in their cultural training workshops.
Did you guys come across any kind of slides that say that all Muslims are wanting to kill Americans or Westerners?
I was there when one time with Klawonn, we were doing our quarterly training, and they were talking about, you know, cultural sensitivity, and, you know, they were talking about, you know, what the belief of the enemy is and what they believe towards us. And then one of the slides, it just kind of made, like, from reading it, you made the assumption that, you know, all Muslims it was their duty to kill Americans or to kill, you know, infidels, whatever it was. And like I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember what I do remember was Klawonn reading that, and automatically, you know, like he was heated because he saw this, and he was looking around, and a lot of these guys were looking at this training, and they were just taking it in. They didn't know any better. They didn't question it. It was just like, okay, it is every Muslim's right to kill Americans or to kill U.S. soldiers. And I'm like, whoa, that's a fallacy of moral reasoning. I mean, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Allah Akbar. This is the direct slide that I saw. I'm reading it. We're sitting there. The guy's like, next slide.